Welcome back to today's video. Today I'm going to go over how Fabiano Caruana destroyed the modern defense against Samuel Sevian in the 2022 St. Louis Cup, I believe. So just for some context about what the modern opening is, it's basically this response against either one e4 or one d4. And the idea is you basically play this move pawn to g6 with ideas to fianchetto your dark squared bishop and just develop your knights and fight for the center indirectly. It's a very hyper modern chess opening. It was popularized by the sort of new hyper modern chess openings that really dominated the 1920s. That's when you had people like Larson, Nimzowitsch, Ali Johan, those people where they popularized these fighting for the center indirectly. In fact, the most common modern opening you probably will recognize is d4 and knight to f6. Then you play something like c4, or you can play e4, fianchetto, and King's Indian defense. It's sort of called the King's Indian defense because I believe in India chess used to be played with only you can move the pawns one at a time instead of one or two at a time. This is how you would play these hyper modern openings. You would not take control of the center, and instead you would just fight indirectly at the center with your bishops, your knights, and you kind of allow white to get this position, but you're going to argue you allow white to get this extended position, but you're going to argue that it's overextended now, that because you pushed all your pawns, you can have ideas. You basically let white dictate the structure and try to call it stupid. Now, I like the hyper modern openings. I play a lot of them. I think actually like most of my repertoire is very much like 60-40 of hyper modern and these classical principle chess openings. And that's just because I think, well, I'm not a super grandmaster. I'm not even a grandmaster, but I think it's very good because it throws your opponents off course. But anyways, in this position, Fabiano Caruana went e4, and Samuel responded with the move g6. So with the modern defense, it's very good. I think Hikaru plays this a lot online on Blitz if you watch Hikaru. But the idea, like I said before, just fianchetto, develop your knights, maybe try to get a double fianchetto, push your pawns a little bit, and allow for white to get a nice healthy center, which is exactly what Fabiano does. And obviously, spoiler, Fabiano wins this because title of the video, we're going to go over how he destroyed the modern defense. He pushed his pawns to e4, d4. That's what you do against the modern. You take all the space that your opponent's allowing you to take, because now you control just this four central squares, C through F, and you're going to develop your knights, bishops, short castle, even long castle if you want to, although I think there's some lines where you can long castle in the modern. I don't think I wouldn't recommend long castling to beginners. That's not really what I mean, but the lines against long castling with beginners is that you're going to expose your king more. You're going to basically have to know you have to waste a tempo eventually to try to tuck your king in. I like long castling, but I digress. Here, Samuel plays g7, simple idea, attacking this pawn. Obviously can't be taken because the queen protects. Knight to c3, protecting his e4 pawn. Pawn to d6. This is very standard chess, very mainline modern. I like to say kind of King's Indian structure, and that's the point of the modern against e4. You basically try to get a King's Indian like setup, because King's Indian setup is very simple to try to get and work with. Obviously, you can make the case that King's Indian is not a good chess opening. I think that's just a stupid take, but you can argue with engines. I've seen people do it, but just play the King's Indian. You're not Stockfish, you're not AlphaZero, you're not Leela, you're not going to destroy the King's Indian. It's still playable unless you're like prime Magnus Carlsen, just beating another prime Magnus Carlsen. Like, it's not a bad opening. Here, Fabi plays Bishop to c3, very simple idea. Wants to stack his bishops, maybe develop his queen. a6, the idea is simple here. Doesn't want Fabi to put his knight on b5. You see this a lot in very classical chess openings, specifically the Roy Lopez, where you play e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, bishop to b5, pawn to a6, and you slide the white bishop back like that. Here, Fabi plays an aggressive move. He plays the move pawn to g4. You're probably thinking, isn't this just a free pawn? It's not, because queen takes, and you're not Magnus Carlsen, you're just some idiot who submitted a guess the elo to Levy. So here you can't take, so instead Samuel plays this move pawn to b5, very simple. He wants to get a pawn storm on the queen side, put pressure on this knight so it can reroute. Bishop to g2, simple, supporting this pawn with ideas to push it, pressure this rook. So in response, Sam plays this move, bishop to b7, preventing that idea. If you push, you're just going to lose this. h4, very nice idea by Fabi. He just wants to get a nice kingside attack going. And if Samuel short castles, you're just going to get just stormed, kind of like the Yugoslav attack with the dragon defense that Fischer liked to employ a lot. So here, knight to d7, ideas to maybe go here. You don't really want to castle your king anywhere yet. I would say, this might be wrong chess, but with the black pieces, I would say, just looking at it from that perspective, short castling, if you can get this knight out, it's going to be a little scary because you have this pawn storm coming. I didn't know you could do that. But here, instead, what you're going to do is you're going to not try to long castle either. You don't want to long castle because your pawns are pushed and there's not any pieces straight off yet, so it's a little scary to know what to do with the black pieces. Here, Fabi plays h5. Once again, very alpha zero, like he wants to play this move h6 with his pawn on g5, clamp down on this, or just take and rip open the center. Here, Sam takes it, and Fabi doesn't take back. Instead, he pushes his pawn because he wants to just rip apart this kingside attack, this kingside defense with his white attack. Here, Sam decides to employ his own attack, kind of ignoring this pawn. He plays the move c5, trying to rip apart Fabi's center. And these are the hypermodern openings. You see, you never touch these center pawns. You're basically trying to rip apart white's center. And obviously, Engine says it's 0.9. It's very ugly for the black pieces, but honestly for the white pieces too. Obviously, I would want the white pieces in this scenario, but it's not a pretty setup for white. I mean, your bishop's kind of locked in. Yeah, your bishops are locked in. This knight isn't developed yet. You got pressure from this. You have a knight. You're not castled yet. You don't have your queen out yet. It's kind of very difficult with both sides, but the hypermodern is you just want to rip apart. At the center, you want to poke at it, kind of like poking the bear with a stick. You just want to like poke it and try to see what you can work with the hypermodern. Here, Fabi plays the move knight ge2 just to support this pawn. So if it takes, you don't have to take back and risk just losing the trades. h6, idea simple. He wants to take on g5 or bait white into taking it. Fabi just ignores it. Knight to g3, very classy move. Pawn takes. Knight takes, and you might be looking at this and thinking, this is kind of scary because you're putting pressure on this. But if you put pressure on this, you're probably thinking, oh, you can take the rook, but the bishop covers here. But then the king's kind of exposed, but that trade just wouldn't work. In fact, it's just it's white to move, obviously, so, or black to move, so that line just doesn't work. So instead, here Sam plays h6 with the bishop. once again, long-term pressure. Queen d2 takes, queen takes, knight to e5, long castle. And you see, computer says Fabio lost all his advantage. I don't think that's necessarily true. I think here it's a lot more comfortable with the pieces. Now you have a rook gun with the queen. You have pieces starting to fly off. And here, Sam plays this move, rook to c8, basically creating a nice x-ray on the white king. Very calm move from Fabi. Just slide the king over to b1. It's typically what you want to do when you long castle, or just castle in general. If you have this sort of x-ray that you can defend, just slide your king out of the way of the x-ray. It's just going to save you a lot of time. Rook to c4, queen back to d2, rook b4. And here, Fabi plays this really nice move, which is pawn to b3. You're probably thinking, why doesn't he just play this move? Pawn to a3, this doesn't work because you just take rook takes b2. You're probably thinking, oh, king can take on b2, right? And you'd actually be wrong because then you play knight to c4, king b1, knight takes d2, and you lose your queen with check. And you can say, okay, rook takes back, but you're still down a queen. Compared to you have two rooks and they have a queen and a rook. And that's just not a good trade. So here, Fabi plays b3, preventing that. Sam goes here, which is a big mistake. It's a big mistake because after you play knight to c4, you just slide the queen back, and you're probably thinking, okay, well, you have an attack coming. You're just going to try to tear apart this queenside king. But no, you just play queen a5, and this looks uncomfortable for white, no doubt about it. But you have to remember this king is not defended. It's losing its defenders because they're all trying to do an attack. But everything here is kind of protected. This isn't scary because it just looks scary, it looks intimidating, but if you sit here and calculate it, this can't be taken because this will take back. You can never get this rook here because pawn's here. You'd have to somehow move this pawn back and get a gun here with this king, with this knight off. And you're probably thinking something like, okay, well, if you get your knight here, check, but then you just can slide your king anywhere. Probably wanted somewhere here just to get it out, but it's not a scary attack. So instead here, Fabi slides his bishop back to just preventing this queen from getting in somewhere and checkmating. Sam responds with pawn to g4, knight to f4, pawn to e6, knight d3, bishop here. And you see, it looks very scary for white here, but to me, that's kind of what the modern is. It looks scary, but if you actually, especially in classical, if you can sit down and calculate it, you see it's not really, it just looks like a scary attack. At the end of the day, everything's defended. I mean, obviously, you're probably thinking, okay, well, you're just playing defense now with the white pieces, you can't really do anything. But that's not entirely true. You have ideas of counterplay with your rooks here. You have this bishop, which is just supporting this pawn, so if needed, you can just go with something like here takes, here takes, something like that. Takes, knight here, or you can just even play this knight to take here. I think here the best move is actually not to take here. Yeah, it's not a bad move, but I think the best move, instead of taking like this, you don't want to take like that. This actually loses a big chunk of your advantage, because now you play rook h1, rook takes, queen takes b4, and you just lose material. So instead, what you want to play here is queen takes, because now you have pressure here supporting. And here, the best move that Fabi plays is he plays this move, rook takes, which I mentioned earlier. It's not the best move. We went over that. Bishop takes, queen back, and you see here, eval bar really doesn't like what Fabi's doing. Instead, Fabi has a major advantage by just taking on g4. Not entirely sure why Fabi didn't want to take on g4. I guess he had some scary ideas that he thought maybe it was something here, or he just wanted to get defensive. He probably thought this was entirely scary, which he's not wrong. This is very intimidating to just stare at, especially when your king is here. Here, queen e1, knight to a3 check, big mistake, bishop takes a3, queen takes a3, knight takes, queen takes, and you see here, Bobby just traded off the entire attack. That's kind of how you destroy these sort of intimidating attacks. If you can get a good defense, I don't care what the computer says, if you can manage to trade off majority of your opponent's defense and get to somewhat of a drawish position, you can probably try to fight. Obviously, you see here on Pissant, knight or bishop takes pawn, and you see this is very nice for both sides. Obviously, in this position, I would honestly prefer Sam's position. I like this activity more, except for the fact that white has a rook. But I think I would much prefer the bishop pair and a knight over just a rook, knight, and bishop. But here, Sam plays a5, bishop e2, bishop takes e4 check, king b2, sliding out a check, improving your advantage. Queen c8, idea simple. Don't want to just get under attack. Maybe rear out this queen somewhere, get some support on this pawn, attack indirectly. Knight takes b5. Big mistake by Fabi. Apparently the best move here is to take with check. Then you have something like king e7, and then b takes a, knight to d5, I think, and maybe queen d2. Queen d2. Computer likes queen e1. I think queen e2 is better. Computer likes queen e1 just because you can have this check if necessary. Maybe ideas of a skewer, fork, whatever you want to call it, X-ray, pin. So, anyways, knight takes, pawn takes. Instead of taking back, Fabi actually slides into the gun. Big mistake. Computer actually hates this a lot. Computer said here the best move is for the knight to take on d6 with ideas of a fork, but then you have bishop takes, and then rook takes d6 here, and you can't take here, so you actually have to slide back to c1, but this isn't scary. It's only scary if something like this were to happen, where just nothing can be taken. But anyways, queen after this, big mistake. See, black has major advantage, and here you just see sort of working back, and you see they're just shuffling pieces, trying to get their footing. Obviously, mistake from Sam around here with taking like this. Instead, he was supposed to play with queen c7 with the idea of rook e3, then something like bishop to your g4 square, something like this, sliding away from this attack, and then something like rook e1, and in fact that would be a draw. But you see Fabi sort of fought his way back up from a lost position to a draw by just playing these principal chess. He's fighting for the center, and in fact it's kind of funny. You see, this is really the idea of the hypermodern. They don't push their pawns into the center until it's late in the game, and all the pieces trade off, and you see Fabi play the center, but now he only has one pawn left. He doesn't have any other pawns, especially nothing in the center really. He has a rook fighting for the center and a knight, but his bishop's not really doing anything in the center. This queen's just cutting off access to the f8 square and controlling here, and you don't really have anything to worry about with the hypermodern. You just have to know how to play these modern chess openings. This isn't a bad opening. The hyper chess era, the neo-hyper era with the Grunfeld, King's Indian, Al-Johan's defense, stuff like that, the QID, Queen's Indian defense, QIA, Queen's Indian attack. You have these different openings, but they're just very, very scary looking openings that you have to know what you're doing. And here you see both sides made mistakes. Obviously, I mean, you can even look at the eval difference. I mean, Magnus even said Fabi at his best was maybe close to Magnus at his worst. That's Magnus's own words. And you can see this almost 100-point and rating difference. So obviously, it's kind of, I don't want to say guaranteed win for Fabi, but Fabi could definitely take down this relatively easy. And this is what he does. You see here, Fabi decides to stroke over, basically giving up this queen, this knight kind of. And here Samuel falls for the bait. He takes, and in fact, you can just take with check. You don't have to take back, because if you take with check, it just ends up being checkmate in 9 moves. In fact, let me just show you this. Here, king to d8, queen e7 check, king c7, rook c6 check, king to b7, rook takes c8, king takes c8, queen to d7 check, king to b8, bishop to c6. Then you have to play something like bishop d1 check, king takes c3, d4 check, king takes f4, and it's queen b7 checkmate. That's kind of the line that Fabi would have to find. Obviously very hard to discover, so instead he takes back with the queen. Still a good move, but and here Fabi makes a mistake. He takes with the queen. Big advantage lost from Fabi. Still enough, still 1.41, but here queen takes, king e7, so sort of just shuffling. But Fabi's just going to slowly work this out, and big mistake, he allows Samuel to promote, but Samuel doesn't know how to convert this. He makes a mistake of checking first. Instead, what he was supposed to play was king b1 check, king c4 with c1 check, b4, and then b2 check, maybe a5, but you can't play c4 here anymore. So after this is just checkmate. So instead you have to go here, then a2 here, and just win the queen back. Very hard to calculate. So here, check, bishop block, check, rook block. And you see Fabi here is just going to capitalize off that mistake. And you see this is how Fabi destroyed the modern defense, but it wasn't a total blowout. Like, I'm probably going to clickbait in this title. He actually made a bunch of mistakes. And you can argue like, okay, time control, that matters and stuff. But this is very, very understandable chess with the modern defense. You're just fighting for the center indirectly. That's how you play the modern defense. But you see, it can get very tactical and get very ugly. So you just have to know how to play chess. You have to know like these common principles that come up a lot, and that's sort of how you play against both against and with the modern defense. You can't be scared. You have to know your moves. And if you like this video, make sure you like, comment, subscribe, and let me know what you want to see in the next video, and I'll see you in the next one.